Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. The 1970s were a very stormy time in Great Britain as that country was beset by economic challenges, power outages, labor strikes and social tensions. This chaotic atmosphere would give rise to counterculture waves like the skinheads and the punk movement among the young people. Their music of choice was punk rock, but by the end of that decade, they would embrace another underground counterculture sound in reggae music. And out of all this chaos came one of the coolest and most influential bands to emerge from Great Britain in the form of the Amazing Specials, a group that led the UK ska revivalist movements and were even responsible for the name of that movement's variation of reggae known as two-tone, a sound which was a fusion of ska, punk rock and new wave. England was a culturally divided place, but the Specials were made up of skinheads, punks, Rastafarians, and 1950s influenced rockabillys, all coming together to unleash militant anthems that echoed the disillusionment of an entire generation of British young people. They were powerful in both a sonic and visual way, as they all dressed in 1960s mod-style rude boy outfits, decked out in their hats, suspenders, fitted suits, and loafers. And when they burst on the scene in 1979, it seemed the world had been waiting for that group of working-class music geniuses as they would score hit after hit with songs that conveyed their jaded worldview and led the way for similar bands to follow in their slipstream and cemented the era of two-tone. But in the most ironic of circumstances, these lads from Coventry, who had always embodied the turbulence of their times, would implode as success would arrive. Let's take a look at the radical story of the Specials. Now the tale of this band begins in the industrial city of Coventry in the West Midlands region of England with a guy called Jerry Dammers. He was born in India in 1955 to a preacher father. The family moved back to Coventry when he was still a very young child, and he grew up listening to rock music but acquired a love for reggae in the early 1970s. Coventry had a very vibrant immigrant community with lots of Jamaicans who held sound system dances and house parties very often, and their music would play loudly into the night. Jerry was smitten by that sound, and by the age of 15, he was playing drums with a reggae band with some friends. He would enroll at the then Lanchester Polytechnic in Coventry, where he met fellow students in singer Tim Strickland, bass player Horace Panther, and guitarist Linval Golding. And with him on keyboards, Jerry would form the band called the Coventry Automatics in 1977. Tim Strickland soon left the band and was replaced by a then 19-year-old construction site worker called Terry Hall, and they would also add Neville Staple, Roddy Byers, and John Bradbury to that lineup by the middle of 1978. The band was forced to change their name after Island Records assigned a group also called the Automatics, and they would become known as the Special aka. The band claims continue to grow on account of their music and Jerry Dammers' activism. Jerry Dammers would organize the Rock Against Racism concerts in Coventry in May 1978, and the band got noticed by lead singer of popular punk group The Clash, who added them as opening acts on their own tour. By the time that tour ended, Jerry Dammers got a brainwave and formed his own record label, Two Tones Records, as a vehicle for his vision of a musical fusion of ska, punk rock and new wave. Along with the Specials, bands like Madness and Selector would be signed to Two Tone Records, and they went into the studio to craft their debut single, and the result was the song Gangsters that was based on a Prince Buster song called Al Capone. BBC radio DJ John Peel came across the song and played it on his influential late night show, and its popularity would spread like wildfire. Gangsters was a cultural explosion that stunned the whole of Europe and marked the dawn of the ska revival era. It went into the top 10 in Belgium, the UK, and France, and charted in several countries across Europe upon release in 1979. With this breakout success, record labels began to approach them, and they would agree to a deal with Chrysalis Records, who promised them independence and, I believe, artistic freedom. They changed their name to The Specials and began to work on their debut album in the same year. That album was produced by Elvis Costello, and they brought veteran ska trombonist Rico Rodriguez on board. And the result was the incredible self-titled album, The Specials, that came out in October that same year. The first single, A Message to You Rudy, which was a warning to all the troublemakers and rude boys in the streets, became a hit that reached number 1 in the UK singles charts and charted in several other countries. The second single, Too Much Too Young, took them to the next level when it went to number 1 in the UK singles charts in January 1980. As far as debuts go, the Specials album was among the most spectacular in UK history. Two-tone ska had arrived. The appeal of this band was how real they were. They spoke to real-life issues that were going on in England, and it resonated with young people and working-class communities all over England and the world at large. Against the backdrop of the UK's economic problems and the wave of inner-city riots ravaging the country, the band released their follow-up album, More Specials, in September 1980. This album featured their lead single, Rat Race, which they named after a Wailers track of the same name. This song was a blazing critique of rich kids playing around in college, and also became a hit that reached number 5 in the UK charts. This album was well received by critics and was commercially successful, but behind closed doors, it was tearing that band apart. Unlike their debut album that was produced by Elvis Costello to have a raw quality and feel, this one was produced by Jerry Dammers himself and featured a more polished sound. Dammers also infused more influences like jazz and easy listening lounge music, a direction that would anger his bandmates. The Specials were idealists and were committed to the purity of two-tone ska. Even the album cover of the second album was colorful and showed members of that band smiling, in stark contrast to the cover of the first album that was in black and white and showed a bleak, serious look on the faces of the boys. Loud arguments and confrontations became a daily thing. However, in 1981, the band would draw inspiration from all the terrible economic depression around them to put out the phenomenal Ghost Town. Policies which had been implemented by the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher had hit their home city of Coventry really hard, as that industrial city saw factories and businesses close down, resulting in clubs and bars closing down, unemployment rising, and violence spiking in the streets. This 3 minutes and 40-second masterpiece spent 3 weeks at number 1 in the UK charts and would chart strongly in several other countries. It's definitely my favorite Special song and has been used in lots of movies over the years, but despite its spectacular success, it proved to be the group's swan song, as the band would splinter soon after. Terry Hall, Neville Staple, and Linval Golding would leave to form a pop group called Fun Boy 3, but would break up 2 years later. Some other members would leave as well, and by the time Jerry Dammers released their third album, titled In the Studio, in 1984 with a new name of the Specials aka, that band had in essence ceased to exist. And that album wasn't really what we would call a commercial hit, though it contained the hit track Free Nelson Mandela. Over the years, members of the Specials would go on to successful individual projects, with reunion shows popping up every now and then, but all of them without Jerry Dammers, who's been doing his thing on his own with a group called the Spatial aka Orchestra. And the final Specials album, that was named Protest Songs, came out in 2021 and would feature only Terry Hall, Linval Golding, and Horace Panther from the original lineup. Sadly, Terry Hall passed away in 2022. Despite their 9 albums and tours over the past 41 years, I only regard their music and lineup between 1977 and 1981 as canon. They are one of my favorite UK groups across all genres, and not only paved the way for other two-tone ska bands like Bad Manners and Madness, but pioneered the creation of a whole subgenre of reggae that we now know as two-tone ska. And have also been the inspiration for many bands over the years, like Massive Attack and the Gorillaz. Born out of the chaos of their day, they embodied the angst of Britain in the 1970s, and in response created music that became the immortal soundtrack of disaffected people that endures till this day. I noticed that their track Ghost Town saw a resurgence in downloads and streams during the lockdowns 4 years ago, proving that the Specials music will always be relevant. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.